Welcome to NYC Jewelry Week 2022. I'm JB Jones.
And I'm Bella Naiman.
And we're the co-founders. And we're excited to welcome you to our 2022 virtual program here on our official YouTube page. And we invite you to head to our website at NYCJewelryWeek.com to check out all the other amazing programs we have this year, both in person and virtually. And Bella, tell us what's coming up next.
You're in for a real treat with a conversation between journalist Smitha Sadanandan and Sethi Couture. So take a seat, enjoy the program. If you have any questions for the designers or for Smitha, please feel free to leave them in the chat and we'll make sure that they get them. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, this is NYC Jewelry Week 2022. I'm Smitha Sadanandan, freelance journalist and jewelry writer. I'm very thrilled to sit down and discuss with Pratima Sethi and Prerna Sethi, the co-founders of the fine jewelry brand Sethi Couture, who are based in California. A bit about them. Although their parents were into the diamond business, and Pratima and Prerna were surrounded by exquisite stones at an early age, they did not pursue a career in traditional jewelry. Instead, they set out on a very different path. And after receiving her MBA, Pratima began a career with a luxury brand, and Prerna pursued her interest in apparel industry and after studying architecture. Yet they desire to design everyday elevated essentials with the same diamonds that they grew up admiring could not be ignored. And in 2009, Sethi Couture launched its first collection of fine jewelry. And growing up in California, these sisters took many trips to India to visit their grandmothers in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. The intricate beauty of the architecture of the heritage revealed a craftsmanship and attention to detail that defined a bygone time. And that's what they kind of captured and distilled into the designs, and it became a source of endless inspiration. The combination of California's nature-inspired motifs and intricate details of Indian architecture can be seen throughout the collection. So to start off with, I do have questions for you, lots of them.
Beautifully said.
Your parents started Manak, a gemstone and diamond business back in the day, and they sold old cut diamonds and natural colored diamonds as well. Would you share a bit of the backstory? And we'd imagine this sparked your love for diamond jewelry in a rather big way.
Yeah, definitely. Again, thank you, Smitha, for having us here. We're excited to talk during NYC Jewelry Week. So, I mean, we were fortunate enough to grow up learning about these exquisite diamonds, but kind of the story around it was really interesting. My mother immigrated to the United States, finding the need for a new identity and a new career path, and kind of had a few stints in different areas. But ultimately, kind of a turn of events and fate led her to start importing kind of amazing textiles and, silver souvenirs from India. And as it was, what they discovered was it was all about kind of finding a niche and something rare and beautiful to really be able to sell to the market in the US, right. And, be able to have these amazing kind of pieces that you couldn't find anywhere, and you couldn't just find, when the world was small and there was no internet, you couldn't just search for it online and find it so easily. So what it led to through many different evolutions of their company was that ultimately they started sourcing these beautiful, unexpected diamonds, diamond cuts, and really about rare natural color diamonds. So pink diamonds, some exquisite and vivid kind of green diamonds, all sorts of ranges of colors. And we were able to admire these incredible stones.
And what we quickly realized was that, there's a lot of talk about color diamonds, but in like big ways, like J-Lo's first engagement ring, would then act like it was that pink diamond. And what we realized, or what we were wondering, is why aren't these beautiful stones being used in a more casual luxury way, or more in an everyday way? And I think that truly became an inspiration for us to work with the natural color diamonds and the rose cut diamonds. And so the first collection that we launched was called Simple Elegance. And it was stacking rings, stacking bangles, and hoops in pinks, yellows, greens, champagnes, kind of just that whole rainbow palette of color diamonds.
That's lovely. So before you kind of became co-founders of a jewelry brand, you had kind of very diverse careers. You're working in retail, and then Pratima, you're working as a consultant in Silicon Valley, and you also did a brief stint, I believe, with LVMH.
Correct.
Correct. So Pratima, what prompted you to take this giant leap and kind of switch careers to focus on jewelry? I'm really glad that you did. So I would love for you to dive back on what made you do this.
Well, it was definitely not planned in any sort of way. But I think the three events in my life that led down this path is one, as Prerna explained in the backstory, of just admiring our parents of being these entrepreneurs and building a life and career, with jewelry and with diamonds or so. So that has always left an impression on so many things that we've done in our lives, career choices wise. Getting an MBA definitely provided that framework and that knowledge and education of just what's possible, again, in whatever business or industry I may have gone in. And then right after receiving my MBA, I worked for Louis Vuitton for a little bit of time. And at that time, it was a program that they had launched for recent graduates to basically be trained to run a flagship store. And the timing of it was interesting because they had just launched their jewelry line. And so, so having the exposure already, it only made sense that I would start in that division. And I think as I was learning about this amazing company and how they built a brand and how they've now used their brand to extend into different product lines was something that I was like, okay, I would like to do something like this for myself. And so that is what led me to then go down this path.
Okay, so this took you on this path to this to the launching your own brand. So you kind of took the brand bit by bit forward, and how were you spreading the word all by yourself, considering that Prerna was still in her own world, in her own job, and you had to do all of this by yourself?
And we didn't have internet the way we do today.
No, but I think it also helps that there's no distraction on social media. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a focused approach. And I think it was sort of a textbook approach in the way from kind of my MBA. So in the sense of everything was very methodical, analytical, researching stores that are out there in different cities and what other brands they carried, what was complementing, what void they may have product wise. So it's kind of doing all of that homework and research and then really just going out there and putting yourself out there. So that was one way, participating in many of the important trade shows and being able to talk about our product and our collection and our story to amazing retailers, across the country. Yeah. And I think part of it is like just the passion that we have about these stones, because it wasn't out there so much. Just, I think, came about, like people felt that, so, and then also being able to do private events where we were able to get consumer feedback. So just a combination of all these things slowly but surely started, building traction.
Oh, interesting. So you did a lot of homework, as I understand from what you shared, and you did a lot of research and taking the feedback into incorporating into your designs, and then moving forward. That's a really strategic move. And did you have to convince Prerna to join the jewelry business? Like, it took her a while, I think, deciding should she jump in.
Not too long.
A bit too long, because I spoke to her the other day and I realized like she was just waiting and then figuring out and then decided, okay, now I really need to step in.
Yeah. So it was, we would never want to convince each other to do something. But so the progression was very natural. And being as close as we are, we were constantly in conversation about the highlights and challenges of the job and career that we had at the time. So when I would be having challenges with supply chain or production, I would talk to Prerna about it, and she would share similar stories that she was going through with apparel production and merchandising and apparel. And we would talk about product launches, and how she would manage product launches, for such a large company, and how that translated to our brand at the time. And so it became very clear early on how many parallels that we had with our experiences. So it was only natural and felt right that she would join.
Yeah. So like we said, I mean, I was in apparel for many years, working for companies like Gap Corporate, and that product life cycle was pretty fascinating as we started discussing it more and more, because we realized we could actually implement it into the way we, built our brand. But for me at the time, the idea of trade shows wasn't the most appealing. I kind of loved the behind the scenes of my corporate job, which is why it took some convincing, because, it was really about me focusing on this like product lifestyle or life cycle, where we went from concept to finished product, and all of the things in between were just picking out color palettes, really merchandising the pieces before it came into store. And we did all that kind of really just the pre-work before it came into stores when it was apparel. But then in jewelry, you needed to go to trade shows and sell your product and really sell your designs. And, the idea of being so vulnerable and putting yourself out there, I wasn't really excited about. But the really kind of key turning point was we went to a trade show where I was helping Pratima kind of set up, and then started with some first clients. And the passion I could see in how she just told the story of each of the designs and the intricacies of each of the piece and how well it was received was showing me that we were onto something, and that she really had kind of established this kind of beautiful story about each of the piece and the designs that I felt like I could kind of work on the creative side of the business and be able to help tell her tell that story. And so that's what really got me excited to leave that cushy corporate job and be on to something where we could build it together, and kind of using our expertise from our previous careers.
And believe me, how excited I was to know that she would be joining.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to, you've said part of the story, but then also to the other aspect that both of you are very different people, your sisters. And then when it comes to working together, you have a business and you have the creative aspects. I'm pretty sure you give each other enough freedom, but you distill your decisions in a pragmatic way when it comes to the brand's growth. So how does this all blend together? Kind of different personalities and work and then family?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not easy working when you're so close, and obviously a family business. But it really took that first year to figure out what our strengths were, and really kind of giving us the space individually to hone in on the skills and expertise that we had.
Right.
And once we figured out that rhythm, it was very natural. We really figured out that one of us is more on the operational strategic side, and the other is more on the vision, really putting the ideas together and bringing them to life. And it's kind of, since then, there's times that we challenge each other, and we end up growing from it.
Which is great.
Yeah. But we always kind of come back to that core, is that we know what each one of us is good at, and we appreciate it about each other. And then that allows us to really not only grow, but also really be passionate about the work that we do.
And on a personal level, I mean, we've made a pact with each other that we would not let, business get in the way of our, relationship. So that was first and foremost.
Yeah.
True. So that kind of makes working together easier. So I have looked at some of your jewelry. I've seen a lot of it in person at the Couture show. there are a lot of beautiful details in your work. A lot of it, I think, are inspired by Indian architectural patterns. And then there is where you now live, your Californian upbringing, the nature motifs, there's mill-grain details that you've incorporated into some of these elements. So how are you kind of leaning onto your heritage when you need to, but not quite, I don't know, Indianizing it? It's not heavily Indianized, although you have roots in India, and then your work is also manufactured there.
Yeah, no,
That's a great
definitely.
question.
Should I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I think being Indian, you can often be pigeonholed into this genre of Indian jewelry. And that was very limiting to us and not really what our designs illustrated. You know, we have a California upbringing, and we've been blessed to be able to visit India on a regular basis to kind of see our grandmother and really explore kind of
And embrace our culture.
Yeah, embrace our culture. And yet we also have this incredible backdrop in California where we are immersed in nature. We have just like, you know, you drive up an hour north the coast, and you have this beautiful scenic kind of water and mountains, and it's just kind of been a source of so much inspiration. And so I think for us, kind of visiting India always allowed us to have that really beautiful visual of those scroll details, that architectural heritage, and really a little bit more of a rich kind of palette for us to work off of and be inspired by. And then being able to blend it with the natural motifs and the floral motifs of the California landscape.
And I would say like the California lifestyle.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Just being, you know, being a little bit more casual, you know, but still elevated.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Laid back.
Yeah, exactly. And so for our designs, we really wanted to honor that kind of hyphenated experience of being both kind of Indian and Californians, and making sure that that casual luxury came through in each of our designs. And so just like kind of we've been able to tell our story of both, you know, California and Indian heritage, we want our stacking rings and our pieces to tell one story and have that ability to blend all the different details so that it comes to life for every individual and every woman who wears them.
Okay. Talking about details, I've noticed some of the vintage details. There are these engraved motifs, and there's a fair bit of Edwardian scroll-like elements. And you seem to be happy taking references from the past, but you're kind of doing it with a modern twist. So that's kind of your design ethos. Am I correct?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're drawn to the old. We love the new, you know, and really kind of having those elements come together.
Okay. So there's another detail that I really adore about your collection, and that's the stacking ring series. And they're hugely wearable. The stacking aspect in general, it's been a huge trend of late, and I think it's taken off on a rather serious note after the pandemic and the lockdown. You have a lot of pieces that are everyday, luxury, wearable, smaller in size, not kind of over the top. What's your take on the subject of stacking when it comes to styling or design?
Yeah, definitely. I always have this saying that trends come and go, but style evolves. And stacking bands are the best way to evolve one style. I mean, jewelry is always meant to be meaningful, and we love just how the intricacies of our bands and the range from like classic to edgy, you know, it really allows all women to wear our stacking rings. And that's really the point. We want to empower women to wear jewelry and tell their story.
And I mean, Prerna said it, like stacking rings for us is a moment of empowerment because each can represent that milestone or that moment to celebrate. And I sort of repeatedly say this: rings, unlike earrings and necklaces, is the one piece of jewelry that you get to see, right? You get to see your band, right? Earrings and necklaces, others get to see. So how beautiful is it that that story and journey is represented through stacking rings on your hands that you get to see and be reminded of on a everyday basis. So stacking rings has become so core to what we do.
And actually a good story also about how the collection even started was working in my corporate job and I got my first promotion, Pratima had created a pink diamond stacking ring for me to celebrate the promotion.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first ring that, I had received from her that she had designed. And at the time, a lot of my coworkers were asking me like, where did you get that ring? Where, and, I was like, well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I basically, kind of shared with them, Pratima kind of putting together the collection, and they started reaching out to her. But it just right away told me that, she was onto something, and that the idea of stacking rings back then was already something that was coveted and something that people just, resonated with many women. And for us to be able to do it with pink diamonds, green diamonds, yellow diamonds, it added this little bit of something rare and unique that you could own and you can just enjoy every day.
Yeah. That's something that I really definitely noticed while sifting through all your jewelry pieces at Couture. Your pieces are quite easy to wear. They blend in with other personal pieces as well. So the COVID, obviously, we have moved out of it, but still in it. It's posed varied challenges across the board. And as an independent brand, I would assume you've had some setbacks, probably. I don't know to what proportion. Did you face challenges in terms of sourcing, manufacturing, and also how did you pivot to focus on sales, considering that you've been doing a lot of trunk shows, exhibitions, and you couldn't kind of do that anymore? So how did you kind of work your way around this?
I'm sure everyone can say this, but the unexpectedness of COVID was such a shock. It was like unprecedented, like no one knew how to navigate this whole way of working. But it forced us to really stretch ourselves and challenge ourselves in ways that now we can see the growth. So in terms of manufacturing, one thing that's great about us is we're vertically integrated. So we really own kind of each piece of the production cycle. And we had a lot more ability to control that and not be impacted the way that some, businesses could have been impacted. We also had the ability to work more locally on our pieces and shift that kind of focus on new designs. But we had to also be smart altogether on the way that we were working and knowing that things are going to change. But I think the biggest thing that came out of it for us was our shift in digital marketing. Like for the first time ever, we were doing a lot more live Instagrams, a lot more just telling our story, sharing the brand, because, during COVID, it really was important to show the values of your company and the values of your brand, because the only reason people wanted to buy was if they resonated with what you stood for.
Very true.
And so that was part of our changes. We were actually putting ourselves out there and sharing, like, this is what Sethi is about. That I think had a huge impact for us. And then on the side, we were doing a lot of social impact work. We were giving back in ways, to help out those in need at such a crucial time. So No Kids Hungry campaign, we raised money for that. We raised money for Give India at the time. And we've continued to do that throughout. And it's really just been a way to make sure that we're constantly giving back. And
something that stayed with us, like as we are, post-pandemic.
Yeah. So
that would be an integral pillar now to the way you work.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
And that we talk about. We were always doing it to some extent, but now we're sharing it for other people to also participate in.
I think we're trying to also use our platform as designers and a brand to bring awareness to these causes that we feel strongly about.
Right. And I think that's something when as a journalist or as a buyer, you are buying a piece of luxury. If it's a jewelry, you want to kind of aid this design, but there's also the values and philosophy of the brand. If that resonates with you, there's an emotional hook. You kind of want to embrace it a lot more.
Yeah,
definitely.
Post-COVID, I think, even during COVID, everybody was feeling so emotional. So they kind of wanted to relate to something that they believed in. So I think that's a good journey forward.
Yeah, I think one of our collections, the PS collection, what resonated, very well during COVID, because it was a way to give a piece that showed that you could be together even when you were apart. So it was our charms that could be engraved with any sort of kind of message,
image.
Yeah. And, we had so many people who ended up taking those charms, engraving something and sending it to their grandmother, or their grandmother sending it to a new mom. And it was a really nice way to just keep everyone together still through the moments of jewelry, even though you had to be apart.
No, it's really lovely to hear some of those stories, because as designers, that's what kind of spurs you on forward. All these emotional stories, and when they share with you what they did and why they bought the piece of jewelry, so it's kind of becoming a part of someone else's life.
Yeah, I think the most inspiring moments have been the stories from the PS collection of why someone, purchased a charm, and then the stacking rings. Like, why did this customer put this combination together? Why did they purchase this ring to celebrate, this moment? So those are, it's the people who end up inspiring us.
Do you have any stories that you'd kind of like to share with us about the stacking rings and how people put them together? Anything memorable that kind of felt like, oh, this is really sweet?
There's so many.
Yeah, I would say it ranged from the funniest stories. I'm going to tell you, there's people who've come in and said they want their divorce stack, like basically ready to add a stack of bands because they're moving on to the next journey and phase in their life. We've had
stories where it's been this mom and her two boys, and the boys got each one of them got mom a ring to go on either side of her wedding band. So something that represented her life with her husband, but she has these beautiful children, and now it's represented with two other rings there. So the stories have been all sorts. There's been stories about a story about a woman who in general just moves frequently, for work and so forth. And so for each move, there's a ring to represent her, her adventures in that city, at the moment.
Yeah.
Great. So would it be right to say that a lot of your pieces do tend to signify or symbolize moments in people's lives, like some milestones?
100%.
Yeah. And even cute things like we have best friends who've come in to get stacks together. So it's no longer about that best friend charm. It's like that stacking ring that they can share and both know that they have the same stacking ring.
Oh, you should throw more parties for friends together.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there is actually this event that we do.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of it from us because we've been doing it for a while. It's our Bring Your Own Bands party. And we kind of coined it many years ago because basically we would have retailers who would tell their clients to bring their existing rings, and basically we would help them style with our stacking rings new rings and give their old pieces a renewed relevance. So the idea is really to constantly evolve what their historical kind of pieces are, things that they've had in their jewelry box for a long time, and just give it this like new fresh moment and life to it by adding Sethi Couture stacking rings.
And literally, like, women will come in with their pouches or their little jewelry travel box with these rings, and we get to play.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, definitely. So I remember Prerna had mentioned to me that your manufacturing primarily happens in indoor, back in your home, your grandma's home city. And you also work closely, I believe, with a workshop in San Francisco for the detailing before you send the pieces out to India. So would you kind of walk me through the whole process of how do you go about coming up with an idea? You have a mood board, brainstorming, design, manufacturing, all of it.
Yeah, definitely. So what we always start off with is a mood board where we just start basically putting up little cutouts and images of inspiration. So whether it's a scene of, a scene of the ocean, or a scene of some architectural details. Often it happens to be after travels. Like we tend to kind of like
do like a brain dump.
Yeah, Pratima just went to Portugal, and there was just so many details that she took pictures of. When we actually, for my grandmother's 90th birthday, we walked around the home that my father grew up in, and we literally took all these snapshots of details throughout the house because there's just such incredible architecture there.
Whether it's the porcelain tile, or whether it's the wooden banister and like the curves that are carved in it, or the ceiling that has the gold foil, painted. So all of these
textiles
details
and all that. So you see us put up kind of that board with all of those details on it. And then we start basically kind of picking out some of the details that we want to work on and start sketching designs based off of them. So as this kind of grows and we start adding more of a collage of different images, Pratima and I kind of both have to agree on each of them to make sure that they fit kind of our style. And so we continue to iterate on it, and we continue to work on the sketches. We get to a point where we're kind of excited about the piece and what the collection looks like. Earrings, rings, make sure it's kind of well-rounded. And after that, we kind of start working on the spec sheet and the details around the scale, the kind of stones we want to use, basically starting to make it come to life. And that's when we send it off to our production team and they start working on the first molds.
And what I love about our iteration process is because we both do have a different aesthetic and style, like personal style, just seeing kind of the elements of each of our styles be infused in the designs is always a fun process.
But coming back to the design, it definitely works seamlessly. I mean, what the two of you bring to the table and your ideas and inspiration. So I don't think there's much of convincing that you need to do when you're coming up with the inspirations.
It is funny though, because there are people who will ask us like, so did you design this or did Prerna design this? Kind of like they're trying to figure out whose style is, But to your point, it is very seamless and it is a blend.
Yeah. And often felt, especially after speaking to both of you at the Couture show, and that's when I realized, okay, so they funnel things in, then they distill it, and there is this whole how do I say, melting pot of ideas that the two of you bring, and then you kind of brewing stuff, and everything kind of takes off from there.
And we also challenge each other. Like, Prerna will come up with an idea where I'll be like, I don't know, but you know what? Yes, let's try, and vice versa.
So you don't shoot down each other's ideas, but you're always willing to kind of give it a shot and kind of try and then evolve from there.
Yes.
That's good.
And, we both have a little classic, but also a little bit of a twist to each piece, because we just never want the classic to feel boring. We want it to just feel that you can have something that's elevated, classic, but always interesting.
Have this unexpected detail to it.
Details, yes. So coming back to your bestsellers and signature collections, some of them have evolved, I believe, to include new pieces. And do you want to show us some of your fun, pretty, lovely pieces that we can?
Yeah, we have a couple of images here that we can show you, and I think both of us can walk through some of the details on it. But as we said, throughout all of our designs, we're using a mix of different textures, but also different kind of diamonds. So this one slide that we're showing you has a great image of our Dunes collection, which has this brushed gold finish, and it's really kind of based off of inspiration of the Thar Desert in India, and just having that kind of sand blasted feel that's very much like the desert.
And what's actually beautiful about this collection is like it's rooted in that inspiration, and then it blends so well with our California kind of landscape, with the beaches here and with the sunsets that we have here. So I think it's probably our most it's like true to us collection,
I can see that. Do you primarily work with yellow gold?
This is an interesting story.
It's evolved over time. So a lot of our pieces are in yellow gold today, but we've actually had rose gold, white gold with black rhodium on it as being kind of a core of what we had done in the past. But as we kind of saw kind of an evolution of just our styles and what people gravitated towards, we have actually a little bit more yellow gold today, but still rose gold, and then touches of that blackened rhodium throughout. So it's a good mix now.
And again, here you can see our stacking rings and stacking bangles.
Right.
Again, bangles and stacking rings just being the core to our brand. And if you look at this, kind of you see the intricacies of all of the different kind of styles. And so you can really go with a range of kind of pieces and evolve your style as kind of your journey changes.
Right. So, quick question on bridal rings, because I looked up your website and saw that you have some bridal rings as well. So are you designing more bridal rings these days? Because considering your core has always been stacking rings, so are you catering to the client demand for alternative bands and bridal rings? That's my question.
So I think first and foremost, the people have taken our stacking rings and really made them their bridal kind of set. So they've walked away from a lot of the traditional engagement rings with the solitaire diamonds and chosen to create personality through stacking rings. You know, the ring that's shown in this picture, the baguette ring in the middle, is one of our kind of best-selling rings that has become actually an engagement ring often, and then people add on bands to it for their wedding bands. So that's what we love, is the fact that, you know, people have made it their own and made it really interesting.
So stacking rings for us has become not just the, you know, the storytelling or more of like the fashion side of things, but definitely spans into bridal as well.
Okay.
But that's not to say that we don't do any kind of bridal rings, but when we do them, it's with old mine cuts, rose cut diamonds, just interesting stones.
Are there any kind of finishes that you love in particular?
In general, in all of our
pieces.
So I guess when we talked about the Dunes collection, we do love that brushed gold finish, kind of the softness of it. But throughout, there's a lot of texture in all of our pieces. I mean, this image alone, you can see kind of that roped detail we have engraved inside of our rings. So often a polished finish, but still, because of the textures in it, it adds just a lot more depth to it.
Great. Also, I kind of wanted to know how, what's the newest thing that you're doing? You must be excited about something happening in the workshop.
We're always thinking of new things, but you know, for us, stacking rings, what we see a demand in that people are constantly asking for is, you know, what are the new stacking rings going to be? You know, so we're always designing into new stacking rings. I think Prerna had mentioned layering necklaces, charms. That has become popular with the collection. So the whole idea of just always like, you know, adding to. And again, whether it's charms, adding for a moment or a celebration, so forth. So continuing with those themes that are very unique to us and true to us. And then one thing that will be coming up, which we're super excited about, are one-of-a-kind pieces. And the focus being on the stones that are the pillars of our brand, you know, with rose cuts, old mine cuts, color diamonds, but really, really special pieces.
Great, because I think the more I have seen in your work is layerable pieces. So I'm very excited to see the one-of-a-kind unique pieces that's going to come out soon. I also kind of wanted to ask you, you've taken the brand through to the next level, and how have you evolved as a brand? Like when you started off, those were baby steps, and then there's a lot of learning, tried and tested methods. Are there kind of any interesting life lessons, business lessons to share?
I think one thing would be, and Prerna, I think you can speak to this more, is just intentionality. Okay. You know, when we first started out, it was more like you just kept going, you know, in terms of like, let's try this, let's try this. But we've come to a point where we know what our brand stands for. We know who we are. And having that understanding and confidence just allows us and makes us want to be just more intentional in our designs, in the way we think about our customers, in the way we approach our brand awareness and our image. So I think that's a big piece.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. And as we've evolved, we've kind of evolved with the people who started wearing our pieces. And that's been actually really beautiful to see. When you start off the brand, you're kind of wondering who the person is who's buying your pieces. And you want it to resonate, obviously, with the audience. And now we've kind of, based off of our values and just kind of our social impact agenda, and we're discovering just kind of amazing ways to connect with people and the relationships we've built through our brand. And that's allowed us to just hone in more and more on the values that are important to us as a company and as a brand. So that's been really nice.
Nice to know that. So I also looked up and then realized that your collection has kind of gained a really huge following through word of mouth. And then you've been doing trunk shows throughout the country. In other words, you are not seeking out celebrities actively, but a lot of your pieces have been worn by celebrities like this Taylor Swift, there's J-Lo, there's Jennifer Lawrence, Reese Witherspoon. So how did that come about? How does it make you feel to see your pieces on them?
Well, the first time when that started being picked up, I mean, it's a strange feeling. Like, it's strange in a good way, right? I mean, in the sense of like, this cannot be real. Like, this is actually, we're seeing this on TV. So there's definitely always a thrill with that. But as the brand has evolved, it has become more, what we get excited about is the organic reach, that they discovered it somewhere and they've reached out to us, for a special event, or a stylist has found us in some sort of manner. So today it's these organic requests that make it even more special, because they found it on their own.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to share. So, but a recent big fan, a celebrity that we're a big fan of, DM'd us and told us that she's a big fan of our jewelry and wanted to wear some pieces coming up, and we were just like,
really?
No way. Those are kind of those exciting moments where you're just like, hopefully we get to share that with you guys in the next couple of weeks. But we were able to kind of put together these styling moments and work with her team and just see if it could all work with her outfit. So
congratulations on that. So I have a very interesting question for you. It's interesting for me, and I'm very curious because I know you are a spreadsheet kind of person, plugging in all the data, and you also go and deep dive into the feedback. Are you able to kind of connect the dots when a celebrity or somebody important finds you? Are you able to consolidate some of that data so hey, this is where they found us, or this is the store, this is the trunk show, they do check the Instagram, or we've been stocked at this particular store and they probably visit. So is it something that kind of feeds into your business and sales momentum?
I mean, on a very technical level, if you wanted, this is where the spreadsheet part comes in. Sure, we're looking at data all the time, like traffic on our site and things like that. And we'll see little blips, and we can tie it back to, okay, this moment happened, so this probably drove, traffic. I think on the retailer level, right, we will get interest from them of like, oh, we saw, this image of, say, Jennifer Lawrence wearing those earrings at the Vanity Fair party after the Oscars, and they're like, our customers love that, so there's those sort of moments. But I think,
I would say, at the end of the day, social media has allowed us to gain that exposure and, allow all jewelry brands, I guess, to get that exposure. But it becomes about being consistent and really sharing that story throughout. And you just hope that, that reach will be there, that someone will discover you. So it's kind of just, you kind of have to stay true to like your consistency and your method of working and process. And then you kind of see eventually,
The
it
effects
works,
of it, yeah.
and it's a lot of hard work sometimes. But we enjoy just the ability to kind of get our styles out there. So
Yeah, because I remember you mentioned at the beginning of a conversation that back in the day when you started, there was no social media, so you had to kind of do things differently. And now that there's social media, things are very different when you're looking at the digital aspect and how you should reach out to your clients and stay connected, interactive most of the time. You also have a brick and mortar store, and is it in Los Altos?
Correct.
yes.
Yeah, and you have a curated collection of jewelry from select designers, and I think there is Carolina Bucci, there is Moritz Klick, and a bunch of other designers. So, as jewelry designers yourself, and you have a store, how do you kind of decide who to showcase in the retail space? I mean, what's the thing that kind of makes your heart sing, or that kind of, oh yes, this is the moment when I
Yeah.
really want that person.
as well.
There has to be something, yeah.
Yeah, so we actually started our gallery pre-COVID, so about 5 years ago. And the intention was always that we wanted to have a space, a very intimate kind of experience where really we could speak about everyone's story and the designer story. And our pieces blend so well with so many designers. And yet each designer has a niche of their own, that we wanted to kind of make sure that we had a space that felt like people could come in and kind of play with all sorts of different kind of aspects of their design style. And that's kind of where we curated a roster of designers that were very distinct in everything that they kind of offered. And they were known for what their kind of design
Signature style
vision
was,
was. Yeah, and signature style. So we're known for our stacking bands and the beautiful kind of rose cut diamonds and different cuts and colors that we use. But Moritz Klick, for example, is known for his diamond shakers. And it's just such a great, distinct moment and a beautiful kind of way to just have something totally different, yet show how everything can blend together.
So, for anyone watching this and wanting to get your attention, how do they go about presenting their collections to you, just for you to take a look and see if that might fit into your retail space?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we always encourage people to just reach out to us in an email and send their line sheets and send kind of just details about their story, because that's really important to us, that we have kind of a group of people in our store that align with the values that we have. And then really it's a matter of just, I guess,
No,
what were you going to say?
I was going to say that. I mean, it's that part about doing the homework also, right? Like take a look and see which other designers we carry, right? And see where, you feel like you would, fit in or bring something new to the table, that we either haven't thought about or, don't carry. So I think the combination of those two, putting yourself out there and then also doing your homework.
Okay, yes, I will make sure I spread the word on that too. So, no, because that's a question that I sometimes get asked. If I'm interviewing a designer and somebody is just emerging, they usually like, how do we kind of get the attention of somebody?
Yeah,
It's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of, rejection involved, but you have to keep on, right? Keep on going.
Yeah. And people,
Perseverance.
yeah. And it might take 5 years before that store discovers you and is ready to, add you to their store. So it takes time.
We'll keep that in mind. So I think, Prerna, you have been on the Couture's Diversity Action Council, DAC, and the council, as I understand, strives to be a catalyst for addressing the issues of systemic and institutionalized racism that has contributed to the lack of diversity within the fine jewelry industry. So who have you been mentoring, and what's your experience like? Is it kind of different to be, how does it feel like being on the other side and mentoring someone?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a huge thing for Couture to start the Diversity Action Council, and very important because for the longest time, there wasn't this resource that really created inclusivity in the industry. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it because it has been such a learning moment, and yet also feels like we're making some impact in some small ways and some big ways. to actually change the industry. I actually get to mentor Maggie Simpkins, but I wouldn't say I was exactly a mentor to her because she's already so kind of well-known and established, and but it's been great for us to just be a sounding board. And I think if anything, it's just allowed more of a connection to the industry. You know, I think for her, she already had an established brand. She was already well recognized, but now she has friends in the jewelry space that allows her to like take on kind of new horizons. And that's been really great. And I think just building a community. You want all the support you can get in the industry. And I think ultimately there wasn't enough support in the past for the BIPOC community. And so it's been a great way for people to connect and be seen.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with you, because there have been a lot of times when I've been writing and they're looking for designers, or they have a bunch of questions and there was no one to answer these for them. So at least this is good to know that there is in existence such communities in different in different parts of the world, especially at couture, because this is something that everybody wants to be part of. At some point they want to be showcasing their work in the design atelier. So I think this movement has been very hugely encouraging and helpful to a lot of people, to a lot of designers. So thank you very much, Pratima and Prerna, for joining me and the New York City Jewelry Week and taking us with you on this wonderful, wonderful journey. Thank you so much.
No, thank you
very much, Smitha. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.